The Verdict with World Pools.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. With Royal Ascot taking place last week, we have scoured the length and breadth of the country to find some interesting races for analysis here on the show this week. And I think we've got 6 noteworthy contests with some horses to follow along the way as well. And we're going to start last Thursday at Chelmsford. There's a couple of performances that I would like to highlight. Overall, the times on the card were pretty good, bar the first time enthused in a crawl of a race over 10 furlongs, was over 10 seconds outside the Racing Post standard. But Jolly Jacktar and Dubai Beach put up good performances on the clock, and I'd like to analyse those in a little bit more detail. What did the Race IQ Time Index say about those performances in the grade that they're at this particular track, over the distances they were run? Well, they were above average. The average for the meeting was 4.7, courtesy of 2 slowly run races, the first and the third. But these were pretty good indexes in themselves, 6.7 and 6.6. So let's start with the mile and a quarter event and see how that time index was achieved. This is a good performance from the winner from stall 8, Jolly Jacktar, beating Wadacre Gomez, a course specialist, from 5, Charlie's Choice from 7. Look at the winner being hustled along early because he was slowly into stride. Top left-hand side of your screen, 0 to 20 miles an hour, only 6th fastest, 2.73 seconds. Benoit Lasayette got hold of him, and this horse got keen with him. Look at that, very fast through the third furlong, 11.5. The slow start meant that Benoit had to get after him to get a prominent position out of the kickback, and in so doing, he's got a bit keen. But at least he's got across and got a little bit of a lead, and he does drop the bridle a bit down the back straight before surging clear of his rivals in really impressive fashion. This race was a race of 2 halves in terms of pace. They went fast early on, the first 4 furlongs rated as fast, and then they steadied in the middle of the race and then picked up a little bit again towards the end of it. But overall, that decent time index of 6.7 was achieved by them going hard for the first half of the contest. He's still keen in the Godolphin blue, Jolly Jacktar, and he's just edging his way to the front. Benoit de la Sayette could never really settle on him and get his hands down on his withers. 11.5 third furlong, 4th furlong he went 11.75. He really was trapping out there in the early part of the race. But we've now got less than 4 furlongs to run, and he will begin to get to the front. 12.19 seconds for the 8th furlong represented him picking up, going to the front and picking up. Now, it's rated as a slow furlong as against the Race IQ par, but it was way too good for his rivals. 9th furlong of 12.01 showed him to quicken from the 8th to the 9th, and that was all too much for his toiling rivals. Look how green he is in the latter stages of the race. He runs around a fair bit. He doesn't really know what to do. Look at that, he's hanging towards the rail, then he's straightened up, but now he begins to surge with a finishing speed percentage of 101.64. The par's a bit better, 103.5. That's because they normally finish a bit quicker in 10 furlong races at Chelmsford because they don't go as hard early on. But they went hard early on here, and that caused a lot of them to be in trouble a long way out. And he was the one horse who stayed on better than the rest through the closing stages. Look at the second, Wadacre Gomez, who's the big white face, yellow sleeves, running on quite strongly in the closing stages. He did really well from a long way back. He raced in 7th place. But his final 3 furlongs were just a little bit quicker than the winner, but he's come from much further back and he's stayed on really well in the latter part of the race. He is a Chelmsford specialist. He goes really well here. He's better on the all-weather than he is on the turf, and he is one to follow going forward. He does hold an entry in the next few days at Newcastle, and he'd be worthy of some interest there. But if he comes back to Chelmsford, I'll be even more interested in him. I said it's a race of 2 halves. Well, that's shown by this graph, isn't it? Look at the colours, fast or very fast in the early part of the race. They went very hard. Jolly Jack Tar, slow to start, raced into the bridle, raced keenly and raced fast. 11.5 and 11.75. He was slow against par through the final 5 furlongs, but nonetheless too good for his rivals. But just make a note of Warwick Gomez, who came home stronger than the winner in the second last furlong and quicker than the winner in the last furlong as well. He's one to keep an eye on back at Chelmsford, but Jolly Jack Tar is a really nice horse in the making, and I'm going to mention it very quietly. What about the Cambridgeshire? Okay, Jolly Jack Tar, pretty impressive in the penultimate race at Chelmsford on Thursday. Here's another impressive performance, and it came in the race after that, the last contest, which was over a mile. It was won by Dubai Beach in really good fashion, surging clear of her rivals in the closing stages. She came from stall number 5 in the Godolphin blue, the grey filly, highlighted there, from Sheriff's Court from 1 and hitched from stall number 9, who ran well from a wide draw. It's not a good pitch to be in. Now, in the early part of this race, she was a little bit slowly into stride, 2.79 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, and raced and was 6th fastest, and she raced in behind the leaders in the early part of the contest, and she was keen. Look, she's awash with sweat. It was a boiling hot day last Thursday, Gold Cup day at Royal Ascot, of course, and she was a little bit free in behind horses, but at least she got a bit of cover. I think she'd have been in trouble if she'd got out on the lead, being as free as she was, but she settled well enough through quite strong early fractions. She had to run 10.88 the second furlong and 11.56 a par furlong through the third. They steadied it then for a couple of furlongs, and then she was the only horse in the race able to come home in par sectionals. Her final 3 furlongs a lot better than the rest of her rivals. The final 2 indeed were even. Look, 24 seconds, bang on even 12s for finishing speed percentage. That's always nearly on par. 11.96 for her 6th furlong, followed by an 11.76 thereafter, surging clear of her rivals from the home bend. This was a really good performance from her. She does lug to her left in the closing stages, but look at the toiling rivals in behind. They cannot live with her. Why I think this is so impressive is how hard she pulled in the early part of the race, using up petrol, but she's still way too strong for all of them late on, and she's won good looking by quite a long way in the end. The official margin 5.5 lengths, and the second was 2 3/4 lengths clear of the third. Now, she hasn't quickened, she hasn't gone really fast through the final 2 furlongs. She's just kept on better than the rest of her rivals, who all came home slowly. They were all toiling in behind, but she could keep going better than the rest. Her last 2 wins have come since the hood was fitted. The hood seems to have been really important to her to help her settle. Now, I know she pulled a bit hard in the early part of this race, but that's because she just had to be rousted up, having been slowly out of the gates, and that got her a bit keen. But in a strongly run race with that hood remaining on, I think there's an awful lot more to come from her at Dubai Beach, who is trained by Cybin Saror, and there's going to be a few good opportunities for this filly going forward, you would have thought. I wouldn't be surprised if she does end up in Dubai towards the end of the year. So it was a race that wasn't won by quickening, by travelling well and quickening up. It was won by keeping on better than all of the rest. Look, you can see there, 6th fastest to 20 miles an hour, a top speed of 41.5 miles an hour. In the second furlong, all of them doing their fastest furlong through the second furlong, and 10.88 was her fastest furlong overall. And why she won by running evenly is that the track was pretty deep. It was a very hot day. It had been a very hot week. It obviously hadn't put much water on to tighten it up. It was riding quite deep. It got horses toiling. It made it a test of stamina, and she just kept on rolling despite having pulled hard. I think she's pretty useful and way ahead of her mark. Let's move on to Friday night now and take you to Goodwood. They staged an interesting card, and I've got a sprinter to follow for you. Let's have a look at the winners on the evening. And there they are, Blue Orbit taking the first. String of Pearls, Miss Dolly Rocker, Way of Stars was quite impressive. Organ, and finally Get Ready to Rumble. All of those times pretty good, just above the Racing Post standard. Let's see how they stack up as far as the Race IQ Time Index is concerned. 5.7 the average here, on ground described as good to firm, good in places. I think that's probably about the right going description. I'm going to have a look at Get Ready to Rumble, who won the last race with an index of 5.5. Not the best time on the card, but a very interesting horse nonetheless. And we'll see how that 5.5 was achieved. Now, in this sprint, Get Ready to Rumble from stall number 6, beat Kinetic Force from 3, and Raggitariat from stall number 7. That was back in third spot. Now, this fella is a half-brother to a horse I highlighted on the verdict last season, that being Desperate Hero. And Desperate Hero beat American Affair in a handicap at Hamilton when I highlighted Desperate Hero. And American Affair, we all know what he's done at Royal Ascot, recently winning the Group 1. And this fella, I think, is following in Desperate Hero's footsteps. He was OK to 20 miles an hour, third fastest, 2.5 seconds, and then he just kept on rolling. He ran even sectionals throughout the race. He went 11.73, 10.22, 10.4, 10.86, 12.07, all rated as par as against the Race IQ template. So what he's done is he's just shown sustained speed throughout this race, and he's just kept rolling out in front. His final 2 furlongs, 22.93, runner-up 23.33, and he was almost bang on the finishing speed percentage you'd expect in a 5-furlong race at Goodwood at 99.93, the par 99.82. His half-brother, Desperate Hero, went on to run really well in much better than handicap company. He's gone to Dubai now, and his career's fallen off a cliff a little bit with Salam bin Gadaya. But nonetheless, this fella might make up into a horse that's better than a handicapper. He holds an entry at the July meeting in a 6-furlong handicap. That might be stretching his speed a little bit too much. For here, he's shown that he's a really fast horse. Those were really impressive splits through the race. And what I liked about him was that he could sustain that speed. He's not a horse who flashes speed for a furlong, flashes it for 100 yards. He can sustain it. Go through those fractions again, where he went 11.73 out of the stalls, 10.22, 10.4, 10.86. 3 consistently fast furlongs on the bounce. Coming back in there for the Jack Shannon team. Jack trained Desperate Hero, this fella's half-brother, in the same colours. And this guy, not at this stage of his career, be quite as good as Desperate Hero, but he's heading the right way. He's lightly raced, and he is one to follow. Look at those even fractions, par all the way. And when you run evenly like he's done, it's very hard to be beaten. Look at those fractions, as I told you about, 22.93 as against 23.33 and 23.34 for the second and third. He's won pretty well. He's won a shade comfortably. And 5 furlong races in the future, I think he's going to be a very interesting handicap sprinter, and maybe better somewhere down the line. OK, let's nip over to Ireland and to Down Royal and have a look at a fillies maiden that took place on Saturday. Here are the winners from the card there at Down Royal. It was a good day's racing, actually. Some interesting performances, and a couple of them, 3 of them, in fact, dipping under the Racing Post standard. In my teams, we'll have a look at Vorfreude and also Light Up the Dark. But I was really taken with In My Teams in the 208. Here's the index. Look at this, 9.9 for a filly in a maiden. A filly who's only having her 2nd career start. The average on the day, and it was a good card, the average was 7.5. The going described as good. It may have been a shade quicker than that, given those time indices there. So, In My Teens then, in the opener from stall 3, the JP McManus colours, beats Valencia from 6 and Diamond Yukonj from stall number 1. A bit keen in the early stages of the race. That's been a theme on the verdict so far today with those 2 horses we looked at from Chelmsford, and was slowest to 20 miles an hour because In My Teams got hampered in the early part of the contest, the first 50 yards or so. 3.48 seconds. 8th fastest to 20 miles an hour. And now look how keen she is. She's really quite rank in behind horses. And you'll see that when we get out from behind those trees. There she is. She's only got a couple behind her at this stage in a race that was quite strongly run. So she's keen off strong fractions. They went very hard in the early part of the race. Avon New took them along. 2nd furlong, 11.61. Then a very fast 12.06. So the first 3 furlongs were pretty quick, and she was doing too much. She was rank and hard on the bridle, perhaps remembering her first run where she ran really well. Sometimes fillies can be a little bit keen on their second starts, remembering their experience first time up, and she certainly was. And she's going to challenge wide and give away ground. Nonetheless, her finishing effort is really impressive. She's just angling towards the outside. She's settled now for Gary Carroll, and he's going to just ease her round the field, and then she's going to fly home through the final 3 furlongs in 35.93. Now, the next best in the field was 37.33, and then a 37.54. They might not be much behind her. Yes, I get that. But ask not what you've beaten, but how fast you ran. And she ran really fast. 105.76% finishing speed percentage. Up the hill, of course, in the closing stages here. Not too far off par. And her 9th furlong, rated as slow as against the Race IQ Index, but 11.91, was way quicker than her rivals. She's surging clear now, and her final furlong, she was the only horse in the race to get under 13 seconds with a 12.49, rated as par. So she's hit the line really hard, and she's going to stay a mile and a half. And here Gary tries to ease her down at the line, but that doesn't work. Oh no, she fancies doing at least another circuit. Look at her there. I mean, she's finished the race and she's got another 3 furlongs, and she's still tanking along the back straight. She had absolute ton left in the tank, yet she's destroyed her field. The numbers are pretty impressive when compared to all of the runners that she took on here, and it's quite a good time index as well. So you've got to think that on her second start, she's flashed some real quality here for the Gavin Cromwell team, and it'll be very interesting to see where they go with her. But given her strength at the line, with that very strong final furlong of 12.49, runner-up 13.19, the third 13.5. She's miles quicker than them, and she wasn't stopping after the line. She took an age to pull up. You've got to think that certainly a strong run mile and a quarter, or even up to a mile and a half, she's going to be quite a useful filly going forward. There she is coming back in. Butter wouldn't melt in her mouth after that, but I can assure you, having watched this live, she took a long, long time to get back to that winner's enclosure. It's not a great race. It's modest stuff, but she did what she had to do in fine style. Just summarise what she did. Her fastest furlong was 11.54. That was at the miles. That was with 2 to go, through the 3 to the 2. 105.76% finishing speed percentage, way better than the rest. That she'll have to come out the stalls a bit better, though, won't she? Look, 8th, 3.48 seconds, much slower than the rest of her rivals, and then she got keen when asked to go forward. So she's still learning. She's got things that she can do better, particularly the start. She can settle better too, but she's obviously got plenty of talent. We were back on the July course at Newmarket last week, a couple of meetings on Friday and Saturday. We're going to have a look at a race on Saturday afternoon now. Here are the winners from Saturday. Crowd Quake taking the opening contest. Pacific Avenue at El Iraq won the feature event. Sursa was a nice winner and a good time in the 3:45 for the Richard Hannon team. Curran and Scattering Light, the other winners on a card. The Curran race very slowly run over a mile and 3/4. We're going to concentrate on Pacific Avenue in the 2:38. 7 furlong 2-year-old contest, and this horse produced a time index of 4.9. Now the Grand at Newmarket was described as good to firm, but the average time index, and some of these races evenly run, was 4.7. So I think we're talking about ground that was more on the good side than good to firm. Let's have a look at Pacific Avenue in a bit more detail then. The second race on the card from stall 2, beating Stable Companion Wild Desert from 4. Commander's Intent came from stall number 5. Now, Wild Desert came into this on the back of a win and was fully expected to go in. Again, things didn't go his way. He's Godolphin White Cap. The winner was second fastest, this newcomer, out of the stalls, 2.67 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, and was always prominent in the early stages of this race. A race that Commander's Intent, the third, made the running in, and made the running in even fractions. It wasn't a steadily run race, it was pretty even. The leader went 12.08, 11.56, 11.5, 11.41, so it's gone pretty even. Got tired as well, the third horse, Commander's Intent. Last 2 furlongs were rated as slow for him and just weakened out of it. There might be more to come from that horse. The first 2, though, they ran evenly throughout the contest, rather like Get Ready to Rumble did at Goodwood, running a full race through even sectionals. It doesn't happen very often, but it certainly happened here. Now's where there's a lot of trouble for Wild Desert. Pat Dobbs can't get out. He's stuck in behind, yet he comes home faster. Pacific Avenue, final couple of furlongs, 24.71, Wild Desert 24.56, but he doesn't get out to the furlong pole, and he just can't get rolling in time to get Pacific Avenue. He showed a really good attitude. Look at his head, bowed low in honesty. Wild Desert, with a bit of a flash of the tail when he got a flick behind the saddle, but he was getting there. He just didn't get out in time. He was stuck in behind horses, and Pat Dobbs will be ruining the fact he had no running room. Eventually here, he just edges out from between horses and gets going, but all too late. His final furlong was 12.94. The winner was 13 seconds. So he was getting there, but he needed to have gathered his momentum a little bit earlier, and he was unable to do so because of the trip that he got through the race. Stuck in with Pacific Avenue, very game, very tough out in front. He's son of Dubawi, the winner, out of a Shamadal mare, that cross that Godolphin likes so much. And he certainly knew his job. Quick from the stalls, always prominent, found plenty for pressure. Wild Desert, though, probably should have won this race. He didn't have an instant turn of foot when he got out, but he was getting there in the later stages of the race. And Pat Dobbs, a bit rueful, I think, when he came back into the winner's enclosure. Both of them quite nice horses, I think. But I really like the attitude of this fella as he comes back in under Dougie Costello. Pacific Avenue, there'll be more to come from him. Certain to improve for this. But the way the race went, I wouldn't be giving up on Wild Desert. Evenly run, you can tell that from the finishing speed percentage, which was almost bang on par. Bang on 100 for the winner, so they weren't far off par whatsoever. And you can see there, look, they ran par sectionals throughout. So it was a nice, evenly run contest. See the third horse getting tired in the latter 2 furlongs. The front 2, though, running evenly with Wild Desert, just a little bit unlucky. OK, for the final race this week on The Verdict, I've picked out a 2-year-old contest at Redcar. I really like the performance of a newcomer here called Finnegan's Rainbow, who won for the Grant Tuer team in the opening contest over 6 furlongs. Quite a good time, 108.42 over the 6 furlong trip. Quick times, really quick times at Redcar, and I think they suggested that the ground was at least good to firm, maybe quicker than that as we look at the Race IQ time indices. You can see there, look at that, the meeting average 8.7, some very fast times in there. And these indices put together, rating the ground as described as good to firm. Probably was a bit quicker than that, looking at these times. But horses were letting themselves down nonetheless. And 9.8 for a 2-year-old on debut is pretty good. Let's have a look at how it was achieved. Finnegan's Rainbow comes from stall number 11, Territorial Star from 10, and Asa, the favourite, came from stall number 3. Now, we all know at Redcar, straight course, you want to be over towards the far side because of the tyre tracks, makes the ground a bit faster, so they all head that way. So the winner was inconvenienced by being drawn out wide in stall 11 and didn't brake very well, 2.68 seconds to 20 miles an hour, the 8th fastest. Commensurate really with an inexperienced 2-year-old who's never run before. The favourite got the rail, bagged the place that you want to be at Redcar, but Finnegan's Rainbow was able to show plenty of speed. 10.62 seconds is pretty quick through the 3rd furlong to make up for that slow break and get a prominent position. Just sat in 3rd here, just niggled a little bit a moment or 2 ago, but then comes back on the bridle. A 4th furlong of 10.7 gets him well into contention, and then an 11.03 takes him to the front, past the favourite. Now look at his attitude when he's in front and when he's running 99.07 for finishing speed percentage. He's not doing a tap. He's just idling, pricking his ears. He's not doing very much at all as Territorial Star runs on a little bit in the closing stages behind him. But I fancy if Territorial Star had got to his girth, he would have gone again. The second was quicker than the winner through the second last and the last furlong. But that doesn't really tell the tale because Finnegan's Rainbow travelled up strongly from a slow start, quickened to the front. 10.62 and 10.7 had the race won. And then idled. You see, look at him pricking his ears out, having a look at something in the infield there, not doing a tap at all. And he could be a lot better than this bare result. I think he's quite a nice horse for the Grant Tuer team, this fella. Second 2-year-old that they've run this season, and they've got a nice horse on their hands, I think. I think the race was okay, the value of it not too bad at all, but we know that the time was good. The time index really good, 9.8, 2.78 seconds under the Race IQ par for 2-year-olds over 6 furlongs at Redcar. And that tells us that this fella could be pretty useful, and possibly when he meets horses from bigger stables might be underrated going forward. Oliver Stammer's the man on board, a horse with plenty of substance, room for a fair bit of improvement, and the data is certainly very positive about this guy. He's been able to run evenly, overcome a poor start and still win whilst idling and not being able to give all in the closing stages. So I think there's a lot to like. See, a lot of those horses couldn't finish their races out. They were finishing slow as against par. The first two were able to finish well. The runner-up, though, saved energy in the early part of the race, racing in 9th spot and then flashed home in the closing stages. But the winner showed speed in the middle of the race and deserves a lot more credit than the runner-up for doing that and still running on well enough to run evenly through the final couple of furlongs. He could be pretty good, you know, Finnegan's Rainbow, and I certainly think he'll go underrated when we see him next. So do keep an eye out for him. No plans for him at the moment, so I don't quite know where he's going to go, but he's one for your racing TV tracker. I think we've seen quite a few nice horses this week. Get Ready to Rumble is a sprinter who is a work in progress for Jack Shannon, that half-brother to Desperate Hero. Get him in your tracker as well. And those two horses that I looked at Chelmsford as well, worthy of your tracker too. I think both of them are pretty useful. So all in all, despite not being able to bring you anything from Royal Ascot, I think we've seen 6 very interesting performances. I hope you enjoyed looking back at them, and I'll see you next week.
The verdict with World Pool.